Creating interesting races and species is one of the harder parts of world building. Their biosphere, their physiognomy, their culture, and a lot more play huge roles in creating them. On top of that, you either attempt to create a race that stands out in the vast sea of settings, or you settle for the holy trinity of orcs, elves, and dwarves, betting on their familiarity. No matter what you end up with, the races of your setting just need one ingredient that decides if your race becomes interesting or boring. And that ingredient is a theme. And in this video, I'll inspire you on how to find a theme that permeates your race's society, their culture, their story arc in your world, and much more. The holy trinity of orcs, elves, and dwarves is everywhere. They became a staple of fantasy, as much as magic and pseudo-medievalism. Each of the races of Middle-earth, including the hobbits, represented a theme of the Lord of the Rings. These races carried the meaning behind certain story elements, and what the series was about as a whole. And that's where the crux lies. Tolkien's races were living, breathing metaphors, each representing multiple themes, interconnected in their stories and relations. Some of them include the corruption of civilization, the dangers of industry, the downfalls of the old and rise of the new, but also more personally tragic themes like immortality and longevity, which I've already made a whole video about. If you're interested in them, watch this video after you've watched this one. So if you want to find a perfect theme for your race, look at the themes that reflect your world and the philosophies within your story. This gives your race a certain depth thanks to a direct link to the meaning behind your setting, and it makes it easier to write story arcs for them. When Star Trek brought space operas and science fiction to TV in the 1960s, their budget didn't allow for many visually distinct species that inhabit the galaxy. Despite their monetary restrictions, they delivered with species that are genre-defining and iconic to this day. In the episode Galileo 7 from the original Star Trek series, Science Officer Spock gets command of a vessel to observe a quasar. The quasar's phenomena made it impossible to keep in contact with the vessel, and of course, they were forced to conduct an emergency landing on an uncharted planet. The series makers introduced Spock as a cold-hearted commander.
Oh, I know you, Mr. Spock. You've never voiced it, but you've always thought that logic was the best basis on which to build command, am I right?
I am a logical man, Doctor.
Well, it'll take more than logic to get us out of this.
Perhaps, Doctor, but I know of no better way to begin. I realize that command does have its fascinations, even under circumstances such as these. But I neither enjoy the idea of command, nor am I frightened of it. It simply exists. And I will do whatever logically needs to be done. Excuse me.
His decisions were purely based on logic and reason, as taught by his Vulcan father. The Vulcans were a race that were easily overtaken by their emotion. Neo-philosophical directions led them onto a path of cold-hearted logic instead, which naturally put their culture and their inner being at odds. Spock's command wasn't really popular, especially after 2 crew members died against the local fauna, and he brushed their deaths off rather non-caringly. But during the length of the episode, his cold-hearted logic gets put into question more and more. Unlike the fantasy races of Middle-earth, the species of Star Trek aren't metaphors for the themes of Star Trek as a whole. Instead, they served as character templates for the people that inhabit the galaxy, or were part of the Enterprise's crew. The deeper connection the viewers had to Spock make the Vulcan race as a whole become more interesting, as Spock represented the positives and the negatives as a character. So think about the character arc you want to explore, and build a race around that. Or you might just wanna do the reverse. In a lot of ways, Lae'zel's character arc in Baldur's Gate 3 is a mirror to Spock's. They are opposites of the same coin. Lae'zel had a firm place in the strict hierarchy of the Githyanki society. She was an unshakable believer in the Githyanki's culture and their regime, which was partially reflected by her sometimes insufferable mannerisms. Despite many situations where her faith was put into question, Lae'zel held to her beliefs for huge chunks of the game.
Vlaakith! I have wielded your fury as a blade, roared your wrath as a dragon. You promised ascension. Yet I crawl among my own people, low as an asp's belly. Shkageth! A trial of faith. Kalir prepared me. Only the heaviest souls soar to the astral. Yes. Yes. I might gain Vlaakith's favor yet.
Like Spock's character arc for the Vulcans, Lae'zel was a vessel to represent the Githyanki's themes of indoctrination, cultic devotion, and their effects on the indoctrinated, despite their leader being nothing she herself promised to be. But unlike Spock, whose character arc led him to find a place within both of his societies, human and Vulcan, Lae'zel had to be plucked out of hers and had to be saved, or come to the realization that she's only drifting closer to literal death herself. So question the themes of your races in your story. No species is perfect, nor are there cultures. The Githyanki took it to the extreme. You should give them edges that might even put your story's overall theme into question. In the Mass Effect series, the Krogans had it rough. After nuking themselves into an apocalypse, the Krogans were uplifted to assist the galactic peoples in a war against the Rachni, the token hivemind bug species in the Mass Effect setting. While the Krogans might have been the perfect choice at the time, thanks to their redundant nervous system.
Destroyed in a collector surprise attack. I ended up spaced.
Well, you look good. The benefits of a redundant nervous system.
Yeah, humans don't have that.
Their culture and society was driven by war and strength. Not long after their victory over the Rachni, the Krogan demanded more and more concessions, as their population grew rapidly. Soon, they declared war against the rest of the galaxy. The Krogans lost that war, but a terrible, utilitarian decision had to be taken to deploy the so-called genophage.
You never considered other options?
Hundreds, thousands. Modified genophage offered best outcome. Stabilized population, avoided publicity that could incite Krogan anger, averted potential genocide or devastating war. Best solution for whole galaxy. Krogan included.
The genophage altered Krogan DNA that drove the Krogans back to pre-industrial population growth levels. For many years, the Krogans adopted a nihilistic mindset that considering they won't gain anything on their homeworld, especially no children, they'll just try their luck as mercenaries elsewhere. The Krogan story and the genophage sub-arc showed the effects of a horrendous calculation the galaxy took to save themselves. It showed the desperation of the Krogan people and the lengths they would go to find a cure against the genophage, even if they had to commit heinous crimes themselves to cure it. The Krogan genophage story involved multiple characters and their character arcs, but most importantly, it served as an arc for the entire Krogan race. So don't hold yourself back and give your entire species difficult questions and directions they have to take, and let them change. See ya.